On April 11th, 1983, Meryl Streep became a two-time Oscar-winning actress with her very much deserved Best Actress Gold Trophy for Sophie's Choice, my choice for the Best Acting Oscar win of all time. Where would she go from there? Was she going to take some time off? Maybe spend a few months carefully choosing her next project? Oh no, by 1983, Meryl Streep was a force of nature in the film industry, a movie star who could pull in audiences, an extraordinary talent the Academy just couldn't ignore. Her first role in a movie was in 1977's Julia opposite Jane Fonda, and just 6 years later, Streep already had 4 Oscar nominations to her name. Best Supporting Actress for The Deer Hunter, which she lost to Maggie Smith for California Suites. Best Supporting Actress for Kramer vs. Kramer, which she won. Best Actress for The French Lieutenant's Woman, which she lost to Katharine Hepburn for On Golden Pond. And Best Actress for Sophie's Choice, of course, which, let's be honest, she was never losing. What a mind-blowing run of Oscar nominations Meryl Streep had at the end of the 1970s and into the early 1980s. But you know what? After Sophie's Choice, she didn't stop working, and the Academy didn't stop taking notice. You'd think since Streep had now won 2 gold trophies, she wouldn't have necessarily received tons of Oscar nominations in the immediate years following Sophie's Choice. But as we're going to discuss in today's video, the rest of the 1980s gave us plenty more amazing Streep performances, and a whopping 4 additional Academy Award nominations, all in the Best Actress category. I know there's been a long delay since part 4, but all you Meryl Streep fans, you are in for a treat. As we get closer to Streep's 75th birthday on June 22nd this year, I am going to finally complete this series, 4 more parts, 1 a month, until mid-June. Today in Meryl Streep and the Oscars Part 5, we are discussing the rest of her remarkable career and Oscar nominations too, of course, in the 1980s, from 1983 all the way to 1989. Are you ready? Here we go. What truly amazes me about Meryl Streep's ascension as a film actress in the 1980s is how with such regularity she appeared in great movies by fantastic directors and continued to prove just how versatile she could be. Take 1983 for example, the year she wins her Best Actress Oscar for Sophie's Choice. She also appears in the landmark drama Silkwood, co-starring Kurt Russell and Cher, and directed by the great Mike Nichols. Streep plays the real-life Karen Silkwood, a worker at a plutonium processing plant whose life is put in danger when she tries to expose her company's safety violations.
Come on, darling. I don't know how late this meeting's gonna go tonight.
I don't want you doing that.
Well, I'm doing it.
The Oscar-nominated screenplay by Alice Arlen and Nora Ephron is delicate in its handling of Karen Silkwood's story, and the film pulls you in from the beginning and keeps you engaged because of the fine writing, direction, and performances. The most significant actors in the film are the main trio, Meryl Streep, Cher, and Kurt Russell. Up to this point, Russell was more known for his action roles in the John Carpenter classics Escape from New York and The Thing, and not so much for his dramatic chops, but he gets a few explosive moments in Silkwood, and he proves here he can hold his own up against Meryl Streep. If there was ever a role in his long career Kurt Russell might have gotten an Oscar nomination for, it was Silkwood. It remains to this day his only Golden Globe Award nomination in Best Supporting Actor. Cher, in her second significant role on film following Robert Altman's comeback to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean, effectively loses herself in a plain makeup-free lesbian character Dolly and proves, like she would again in 1987's Moonstruck, she can be a commanding film actress when given the right material. She is a revelation in this movie, her character so effectively underplayed. Apparently audiences weren't on board with Cher appearing in a drama with Meryl Streep, as she talked about on the Graham Norton Show.
Meryl Streep and everybody applauds, and then they say Kurt Russell and everyone applauds, and then they say Cher and everyone started laughing. Oh. And it was heartbreaking.
But you know what? They weren't laughing when the movie opened. Cher earned her first Oscar nomination in the Best Supporting Actress category, and she won the Golden Globe Award. Silkwood also remains one of Streep's ultimate showstoppers, the actress making us forget all of those memorable characters and iconic performances she had already given us before. To be honest, after Sophie's Choice, she might have been pigeonholed in period roles, ones that she would go on to play in films like Out of Africa and Ironweed, but Silkwood showed she could play a complex lead character who lives in the modern era. As Karen, Streep speaks her mind, shows her emotion without abandon, and manages to make a sometimes unsympathetic character one we are always rooting for. The film offers her lighter, playful moments, as well as a few terrifying ones. The film also gives Streep a chance to sing, which is always welcome in any movie. She quietly performs Amazing Grace while driving back home after seeing her children, and the song repeats at the end in a haunting manner as Karen's fate is finally met in the notorious, still unexplained car accident. Streep is exceptional in this film, and so it made sense she would receive award nominations once again in Best Actress, including Golden Globes, BAFTA, and yet again the Oscars. Silkwood got 5 nominations total at the Academy Awards: Film Editing, Original Screenplay, Director, Supporting Actress for Cher, and Actress for Streep. Now, Meryl Streep didn't have a chance in hell at winning on this go-around, where she was up against Jane Alexander for Testament, Shirley MacLaine for Terms of Endearment, Julie Walters for Educating Rita, and Deborah Winger for Terms of Endearment. Obviously, Streep had already won 2 gold trophies in just a matter of years, and I can't imagine anyone was ready to give her a third at this stage of the game. And most important, at the 56th Academy Awards on April 9th, 1984, this was Shirley MacLaine's moment. She was on her 6th Oscar nomination without a win, and she was in the year's beloved winner of Best Picture and Director, Terms of Endearment. The timing was oh so right for MacLaine to finally pick up her elusive Academy Award, and her speech that followed was a great one.
God bless that potential that we all have for making anything possible if we think we deserve it. I deserve this, thank you.
1984 gave us one Meryl Streep project, Falling in Love, a romance drama that was most notable for reteaming Streep with Robert De Niro after The Deer Hunter.
Anyway, how are you?
You look nice.
You wanna go?
Where?
I actually find this film criminally underrated. It's very breezy and entertaining and affecting by the end, and it has a fantastic supporting cast, including Harvey Keitel and Diane Wiest. Although Falling in Love will never be remembered as one of Streep's best movies or performances, it didn't net her any major award nominations. There is an infectious charm to the film that keeps you watching all the way to the end, the same way a good book keeps you turning the pages. Audiences in 1985 were treated to 2 Meryl Streep movies, one that would be a mega blockbuster and sweep the Oscars, and one that's been, frankly, mostly forgotten to time. Let's start with the latter film, Plenty, an uneven and frequently dull period drama based on a play by David Hare that stars Streep as an Englishwoman who spends 20 years trying to make a life for herself in post-World War II England.
I'm only sorry to be delayed.
Oh, Brock says you're all ragged with fatigue. I hear you've been having the most frightful week.
It has been, yes.
Well, don't worry. Here at least you can relax.
Now, the cast is impressive, with John Gielgud, Ian McKellen, Sting, and Tracy Ullman popping up throughout the narrative, but ultimately Plenty lacks focus, and its ending, which leaves a luminous Streep on an English countryside taking in a gorgeous view, feels like something out of a different movie. However, 1985 was also the year of Out of Africa, a film that would take the world by storm and bring Meryl Streep back to the Oscars. Sidney Pollack's sweeping 2-hour and 40-minute epic had all the makings of an awards-friendly movie. It tells a true story set in 1916 Africa, filled with warmth and heart and romance and tragedy. Streep plays Karen Blixen, a Danish baroness who establishes a plantation in Kenya and becomes torn between 2 men. Her husband, who she married out of convenience, played by Klaus Maria Brandauer in an Oscar-nominated role, and the valiant, free-spirited hunter, played by Robert Redford.
She almost had me for lunch.
Well, it wasn't her fault, Baroness. She's a lion.
Really, it wasn't mine.
Doesn't that outfit come with a rifle?
Yeah, it's, on my saddle.
Better keep it with you. Your horse isn't much of a shot.
So originally, Sidney Pollack did not even consider Streep for the lead role of Karen because he didn't think she was sexy enough for the character. So Streep, who has fought very hard for more roles than you might think, went to a meeting with Pollack wearing a low-cut blouse and a push-up bra, and the rest is history. Redford is good in the movie, as good as he needs to be, but Streep is her typical transformative best. Sporting a spot-on Danish accent, she shows pain and sadness, love and longing, and in one of the film's most memorable scenes, pure unadulterated terror when a lion approaches her on dangerous terrain. Out of Africa was a major hit with critics upon its release in December, with Roger Ebert calling it one of the great recent epic romances, and the film became the 5th highest grossing of the year with 87 million nationwide and 227 million worldwide. Streep might have taken 1 year off from the Oscars, but she was back in early 1986, once again in Best Actress. I would say she had a better chance to win this time around than she did with Silkwood, because Out of Africa was a juggernaut with critics and audiences that earned a whopping 11 Oscar nominations and won 7, including Best Director and Best Picture for Sidney Pollack.
I can't leave this podium without saying I could not have made this film without Meryl Streep. She is astounding, personally, professionally, in all ways, and I can't thank her enough. Thank you.
However, Best Actress at the 58th Academy Awards on March 24, 1986 was extremely competitive, her fellow nominees being Anne Bancroft for Agnes of God, Whoopi Goldberg for The Color Purple, Jessica Lange for Sweet Dreams, and Geraldine Page for The Trip to Bountiful. Even though Out of Africa was that year's Best Picture winner, I do think Streep was likely in 3rd place here, since Goldberg was the breakout star of The Color Purple, winning the Golden Globe Award that season for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama, and then Geraldine Page was the veteran favorite on her 8th Oscar nomination without a win. The narrative for Page just couldn't be overcome because she indeed became the winner that night for her glorious performance in The Trip to Bountiful. But despite her loss in Best Actress, at least Streep got to be in a Best Picture winner again, following The Deer Hunter and Kramer vs. Kramer. Out of Africa, and this might shock you a little bit, it shocked me to be sure, has proven to be, to date, her final appearance in a movie that went on to win Best Picture at the Oscars. 1986 gave us a lighter piece of entertainment starring Streep that re-teamed her with screenwriter Nora Ephron and director Mike Nichols, and teamed her for the first time with the one and only Jack Nicholson. Heartburn, loosely based on Ephron's own experiences, tells of a magazine worker who gives up her career to be a wife and mother, and later comes to learn her husband is a lying cheat.
Flowers? Look at all these flowers that you bought her! And you occasionally brought me home a bunch of wilted zinnias. How can you do this? If I'm such a bitch, then tell me!
This film sadly turned out to be a misfire with critics and a dud at the box office, although it's certainly an interesting failure with all the talent involved in front of and behind the camera, and it did inspire this absolutely amazing moment at Streep's 2004 AFI Life Achievement Award when Nora Ephron took to the stage.
But the true stretch, if I do say so, was playing me in Heartburn. She plays all of us better than we play ourselves, although it's a little depressing knowing that if you went to audition to play yourself, you would lose out to her.
Next up for Streep was another collaboration with Jack Nicholson, the depressing, slow-moving period drama Ironweed. Set during the Great Depression, Nicholson is so often over the top in his movies, he followed Ironweed with his most energetic performance ever as the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman, that it's kind of refreshing to see him as the main character Francis, a calm, beaten-down vagrant roaming the streets who only rarely breaks a smile. And Streep is brilliant as Helen, a lover and drinking companion to Francis who spends most of the film sporting the same outfit, a large green jacket and bowl-shaped red hat that covers messily cut blonde hair.
By God, Helen, that's as good as it gets. You were born to be a star.
Oh, you think so?
Her face is robbed of any makeup, her teeth are dark yellow, and she talks in a realistic Irish-American accent. The best scene in Ironweed is Helen taking the stage to sing She's My Pal, and is likely the moment that earned Streep another Oscar nomination. Honestly, she was just happy to be there this time at the 60th Academy Awards on April 11th, 1988, this marking the one and only time to date Streep received an Oscar nomination without receiving a Golden Globe nomination. Her fellow nominees this time were Cher for Moonstruck, Glenn Close for Fatal Attraction, Holly Hunter for Broadcast News, and Sally Kirkland for Anna. I don't know how often I say this about an Oscar race Meryl Streep is a part of, but I do think she was in 5th place here, Ironweed just not making much of an impact at all on critics and audiences that season. Fatal Attraction was a breakout hit thriller with Close on her 4th nomination without a win. Hunter was in a hugely beloved film, James O. Brooks' follow-up to Terms of Endearment. Kirkland won Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama at the Golden Globes, so she was definitely in the running too. And then there was Cher, who had 3 releases in 1987, who had been snubbed for Mask a couple years before, and whose performance in Moonstruck was quite simply too magnificent to ignore. I'm so thankful Streep was nominated this year because it gave us these 2 memorable moments. First, when Paul Newman announced the winner, just look at Streep's reaction.
The winner is Cher in Moonstruck.
And second, in her speech, when Cher said this.
And I also would like to thank Mary Louise Streep, who I feel so unbelievable that I did my first movie with her, and now I was nominated with her, and I feel really thankful.
Again, just frickin' wow. What a run of films and performances and Oscar nominations, but we're still not done. Yes, there was one more Oscar nomination for Meryl Streep in the 1980s for 1988's A Cry in the Dark. This film tells the real-life story of a mother whose child was killed by a dingo in the Australian outback and who was forced to prove her innocence when she's accused of murder.
I can only go on the evidence of my own eyes. We're talking about my baby daughter.
A Cry in the Dark is not as well shot as Out of Africa, or has the attention to detail in the production design of Ironweed, but I personally think this is the most riveting of her films since Silkwood. Streep is so gifted at creating original and 3-dimensional characters on the screen, and her performance as Lindy in A Cry in the Dark has to be considered one of her most astonishing. With her black bob of a haircut, she looks almost unrecognizable, and even more impressive, I would say, her Australian accent is so spot on that within minutes of the movie you naturally assume that's how she talks, no questions asked. But going deeper than that, she hits so many essential notes with Lindy, playing hysterics, grief, anger, resentment. One of her best scenes comes toward the end in her revealing court scene when she doesn't play on the jury's sympathy about the loss of her baby, but instead appears emotionless on the stand, tired of all the allegations and the rumors, and wanting nothing more than to get the trial over with. A Cry in the Dark might have done better with critics than it did at the box office, but it still managed to net Meryl Streep her incredible 8th Oscar nomination in just 10 years, even if Jimmy Kimmel for some reason denied Streep this truth on his show when he asked her to name everything she'd been nominated for.
Cry in the Dark, maybe?
No!
Why? Why?
You were wrong! Now, A Cry in the Dark in some territories goes by the name Evil Angels. Maybe that's what Jimmy Kimmel had on his sheet. She was nominated for this movie, I promise, but being A Cry in the Dark's only Oscar nomination that year, Streep had little chance of winning at the 61st Academy Awards on March 29, 1989, up against her fellow Best Actress nominees Jodie Foster for The Accused, Glenn Close for Dangerous Liaisons, Melanie Griffith for Working Girl, and Sigourney Weaver for Gorillas in the Mist. Now, Foster did end up taking home the Oscar that year, even though she was the only nomination for The Accused, but that was an emotionally devastating performance that resonated big time with audiences and awards voters, a whole lot more than Streep's performance did in A Cry in the Dark. To be honest, I'm still kind of shocked Glenn Close didn't win her Elusive Oscar this particular year for her extraordinary performance in Dangerous Liaisons. This would have been a good year to give her the gold trophy, especially since Foster would go on to win Best Actress again just 3 years later for The Silence of the Lambs. Still, as the 1980s came to a close, Meryl Streep was continuing to prove she was the world's greatest living actress with her spectacular performances and consistently terrific films. But you know what? There was something else Streep wanted to prove for the first time, that she could be funny. Her final film of the 1980s was She-Devil, co-starring Ed Begley Jr. and Roseanne, which features Streep as a best-selling romance writer who begins an affair with a vengeful woman's husband.
I hate you. You go upstairs, young lady, and take off my dress. You're not my mother. I said move!
This comedy has been, let's be honest, mostly forgotten, although Billy Eichner enjoyed it.
Billy, I love you. I'm your biggest fan. I saw She-Devil in the theater even, and it's great.
What She-Devil ultimately proved as the 1980s reached its conclusion was that Streep was happy to surprise us in her choice of projects and genres. Next time in Meryl Streep and the Oscars Part 6, we're exploring Streep's career in the 1990s, which included more dramas, of course, but also a superb action thriller and a pair of iconic comedies I believe are two of her all-time greatest movies. And then, oh yes, 4 more Oscar nominations, all in Best Actress, for Postcards from the Edge, The Bridges of Madison County, One True Thing, and Music of the Heart. We might be over the halfway mark of this long-running series, but really, when it comes to Meryl Streep and the Oscars, we have only just scratched the surface. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below what is your favorite Meryl Streep Oscar nomination of the 1980s, and what's a film she made in the 1990s you're most excited to hear me talk about in Meryl Streep and the Oscars Part 6. We'll see you next time at the Awards Contender.